All right, so 2022's Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, is written and directed by Rian Johnson, who wrote and directed the 2019 Knives Out film. And if you want to see my review for that, that is on the channel. It came out a few days ago. But yeah, it brings back Daniel Craig as Detective Blanc. And in this film, he gets invited to a mansion on a remote island for a murder mystery party. And he gets invited by Miles Braun, played by Edward Norton. And basically, Edward Norton's character in here, he's a tech CEO with a massive ego and a never-ending wallet, from what it seems like. Very rich guy, has a lot of crazy items in his house that are probably worth, well, honestly, priceless, let's be honest. But yeah, I mean, he has some crazy shit in there. But let me see here. Along with Blanc, a slew of influencers, politicians, businessmen, and a bunch of other rich, egomaniacs get invited to the island as well. All of them are friends, colleagues, co-workers of Miles Braun. And, yeah, they're just all around terrible people, all of them. Like, if you thought the people in the first Knives Out movie were bad, these people are like those people times 10. And honestly, this whole movie is Knives Out 2019 times 10. It does fall into a case of sequelitis where they try to take the first movie and times it by 1,000,000 and make it on such a bigger scale and have, CGI in there when they really maybe don't need it at times. I mean, there's some parts in here where it's like, yeah, you kind of need CGI, I guess. But, it has a much bigger scale, probably a much bigger budget as well. So they went crazy with this one for sure. And sometimes going crazy is not always a bad thing. And most of the time it usually is just too much. At times, this film can be a little bit too much. It can be a little overly convoluted, but at other times, it can be really, really charming, really funny, really clever. There's moments in here where you're like, Rian Johnson, really? Why did you do this? Like, you probably needed to rework this. This doesn't quite make sense. You're being a little overly convoluted. You're not making sense here in one part or another. And then there's other times where you're like, oh my God, Rian Johnson's a genius. A lot of people hate on this guy because of The Last Jedi. I understand that. That movie is terrible. But, with 2019's Knives Out, I think he's shown that he can make a really good movie. Because, again, that's one of my favorite movies of all time. I think it's a fantastic film. It's a modern take on the classic whodunit murder mystery. And with this one, I don't know how quite to describe this. I mean, if anything, this movie is more like Clue than the first one, but not completely. I mean, it's not just like people dying left and right. That's not what this movie is. And that's not what the first movie is. But a lot of times these movies, like the first one especially, gets compared to Clue and stuff like that. So this movie, I think, it has elements of that. There's parts in here where the lights turn out and it's like, oh, well, where's this item and where's this person and who's dead in this room and all that kind of stuff. It has elements of that more so than the first one, which I appreciate because I am a fan. A lot of people, especially kids nowadays, like, people younger than me, probably don't know that there's actually a Clue movie, but there is. And it's a very interesting watch for sure, especially by the end of the film. Maybe I'll review that at some point. But yeah, I mean, it starts off really quick. You get introduced to all these characters that I'll talk about in a second. All this new cast of characters, which in the first movie you had people like Jamie Lee Curtis, Don Johnson, Michael Shannon, all that kind of stuff. In this movie, you have all these other huge named actors that people really go to the movies for. People turn on movies to see these actors. I think having these types of actors in these types of movies, especially on Netflix, is going to make these types of movies do better. And as long as the movies are good, I'm fine with that. But you have films like Death on the Nile and Murder on the Orient Express that have a really great cast. I mean, there's plenty of movies out there that can be used as an example, but movies that have a great cast but just are not good, they completely miss the mark. And that's how I feel about those Death on the Nile and Murder on the Orient Express films. I do not like those movies, but I do like mysteries. And, they could never get right what Knives Out could. And I think this movie is kind of another another example of them doing something right that franchise couldn't do. You know, there are some elements of Death on the Nile, some slight elements of Death on the Nile in this movie. Maybe not even slight. There are a lot of parallels that I can think of right now that I won't say just because a lot of people probably haven't had the chance to watch this movie yet. But there's a lot of parallels that I can think of from that movie to this one. And in a way, I wouldn't really compare Knives Out 1 to Murder on the Orient Express. That one isn't very similar to that. But yeah, I mean, like, in a way, these almost feel like not necessarily parodies, but they feel like they're poking fun at other films that try to do what they're doing and just cannot get right. You know, they're almost making fun of them at times and being like, hey, stupid, look at this. You tried to do this. Well, we can do it better. So for the most part, this movie does have a lot of great writing to it. My main thing in here is that, yeah, it just gets overly convoluted. I think the runtime is a lot longer than it needs to be. There are certain reveals that I feel like should have happened a little bit sooner in the film, how it, you know, similar to how it happened in the first one, you know, reveal it quick or quick-ish so the rest of the movie has time to breathe. I don't know, even with the 2 hour and 10-minute runtime here, there were elements of this and there were people in here that I feel like just didn't get their moment to shine. And, I mean, that's kind of the case in the 2019 film. I feel like there were certain characters, particular characters in there that were just kind of pushed to the side, but not as much as this movie does. I wouldn't say this movie does a whole lot, but, you know, not every real character really gets their moment. They don't really get a defining, not all of them really get a defining character trait. Which sucks because you have some really good actors in here. But yeah, let me talk about those actors real quick. Obviously, like I said before, Daniel Craig as Detective Blanc. We have Edward Norton as Miles Braun, the CEO tech guy that I mentioned before. We have Kate Hudson as Birdie J, which, you know, she's a model, much like real life. And we also have Dave Bautista as Duke Cody. He's a bit of a Twitch streamer, I believe. Cool to see Dave Bautista in two things in one day. I'm recording this on the same day I watched the Guardians Holiday Special, so that's fun. We also have Janelle Monáe as Andy Brand, which honestly I would say her character, her as an actress, she was one of the biggest standouts in this movie for me. We also have Kathryn Hahn as Claire DeBella. Yeah, I believe, I'm not sure which state she's the governor for, but she is a governor. So that's the politician that I was mentioning there. We have Leslie Odom Jr. as Lionel Toussaint. Very great actor there. And then one of them, there's actually two here that I feel like didn't really get a whole lot to do. And that is Jessica Henwick as Peg and Madeline Klein as Whiskey. I would say Whiskey probably got a little bit more to do than Peg. You know, Madeline Klein isn't really an actress I'm familiar with. I think she's on Outer Banks. I'm not completely sure. But Jessica Henwick is somebody that I've seen in quite a few films over the last couple of years, and I've really liked her. So the fact that she's just kind of pushed to the side is a little disappointing. Let me see. I don't think there's any other huge cast members that I need to mention. There are a few people that are just cameos, big actors. Do not look up the cast if you haven't seen this film yet, because those surprises will surprise you. And I'm lucky that I kind of forgot about it, because usually I write down the whole cast, or at least as much of it that I think is necessary before I do my reviews, so I can just read them. But yeah, good thing I forgot about who was in the movie, because when they popped up, I was like, oh my god, what? Like, what are they doing in here? It's kind of like Bullet Train, if you watch that movie. Like, there's a few cameos in there from big actors where you're just like, wait, what? They're in this movie? So yeah, that's fun. I mean, they never really play a big role, but it's hilarious when they do show up. Let me see here. One of the problems with this movie also is that there aren't many particular characters that you ever get attached to, like, emotionally. Like, there's never any characters you really sympathize with. There are a couple that I won't mention, just, you know, for spoiler's sake, but for the most part, I mean, most of these people do suck. And I feel like I probably wrote that before the movie was finished. But up until a certain point, you just don't really give a shit about any of the characters. And then it kind of twists on you and it changes and you're like, oh, okay, now I care about this character I didn't know I should care about. But yeah, I mean, like, certain things get revealed and I don't know. It's just one of those things where I'm like, I like the reveal. I think it's cool, but like, I don't know. It took so long to get there. It took about like half an hour to get to this point. And I feel like it shouldn't have taken that long to get there. I feel like the runtime should have been shorter. I feel like they should have gotten through things a little bit quicker. And probably taken out some aspects of it. Because this movie very much is like an onion. There's a lot of layers to it. But, you know, are there too many layers to this movie? I think there might be at times. I think there's just a little too much going on, and I feel like there's ideas in this movie they probably could have spread out, you know, through 2 movies, even though it might not be the same cast in both movies, obviously, because each movie is like a different story. You know, it's ideas you could spread out throughout different films. And I don't know, it just kind of feels like they blew their load in this one movie. So it makes you wonder, like, if this movie is Knives Out 2019 times like 10, obviously the third one has to be like this one times like 20. So I'm like, but how are you going to do that without making it feel more convoluted than this one felt? I mean, could they go back to basics? That's the thing with this movie. They don't keep it very simple. There's a lot of layers to this, like an onion, and it makes sense why they call it that. But again, like, I just think there's a little bit too much going on in this movie at times. But that's not to say it's a bad movie. Will it end up on my top 10 best of this year? I don't quite think so, but it is a movie I had a lot of fun with. There is quite a bit of humor in there that does land, especially with the character of Blanc. There's some surprisingly humorous moments with him. But I will say towards the beginning, you know, the pandemic, you know, it takes place in 2020 when the pandemic is going on. And the pandemic plays a small role in the beginning of the film. And you see Daniel Craig's character kind of just like down on his luck because he doesn't really have a case to work on since, you know, it's a pandemic. He doesn't really have anything to keep his brain occupied. And from that point, pretty much until like maybe the half an hour point of the film, he's just a bit of a weird character. He's just a little too kooky, a little too goofy. You know, they're doing a little bit of a Thor thing, but there's certain things revealed in there where it's like, well, was that just an act? I don't know. Hopefully I'm not spoiling anything huge, but like, I don't know. There's a lot of elements to this movie. So even if you think you know who the killer is, and you might know who the killer is, there's just still so much to it. And I guessed who the killer is. I'm not going to say who it is, obviously. I guessed who it is, though. Pretty much early on, probably not even the first like 20 minutes, I was like, yeah, I think this is the person who it's going to be. And it turned out to be the person I thought it was going to be. But the reveal was still satisfying, which is a really difficult thing to do. If you already know who the killer is, yet having a satisfying reveal, that's not easy. Especially for me, I'm very critical of stuff like that. Like, if I know who the killer is before the ending of the film and I think it's obvious, most of the time I'm going to hate it. But the way they went about it by the climax of the film, I was impressed. I was loving the writing of it and having a lot of fun still. So, I mean, overall, again, not as good as the first one. One of my favorite movies of all time. I don't think this one could have come half as close, but I still think this is a good movie to watch. I recommend watching it on streaming. Do you need to rush to the movie theater to watch this? I don't necessarily think so. I think you should be fine waiting about a month until it pops up on Netflix to watch it there. But yeah, for those of you who don't know, I have a new ranking system for movies. And actually, I have an even newer ranking system for movies. If you've been keeping up with my past few videos or so, I've been using this new ranking system, but I just changed it last night to kind of, I don't know, feel a little bit more compact, I guess. I also have a streaming service movie/show ranking system, which I used in my Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special Review. But for this one, I'm just using the regular movie ranking system. And you're probably asking, do you have a TV movie ranking system? No, I do not, because most of the TV I watch is on streaming services anyways. So, but yeah, let me run through this ranking system real quick. At the top, we have top 10 contender. You know, could be the top 10 for the year or possibly of all time, but usually just for the year. Tier below that, we have weekend plans, watch opening weekend or as soon as possible. Tier below that, we have avoid the crowds, watch in theaters, but wait a week or two for the crowds to die down. Tier below that is Tuesday discount. Tier below that is rent it. Tier below that is stream it. Tier below that is skip it. You get the idea. But Tuesday discount, you know, at least at the theater I go to on Tuesdays, they have like discounted tickets. So go watch it at a discounted price. You know, rent it, pay to watch it at home, stream it, watch it on streaming service, skip it. You know, you get the idea there. Since this is going to be a movie that's going to be on a streaming service soon, I am going to do my ranking for that as well. But in terms of a movie that's in theaters, I would say if you have the time to do it, avoid the crowds, wait to watch it in theaters, wait maybe a week or two for the crowds to die down, and then check it out. I think it's worth watching, but is it like the best movie I've seen all year? Maybe not. I had a lot of fun with it. There were times where I thought it was the best movie I've seen all year, or one of the best at least, but then there's other things that happen in here where I'm just like, I don't know if I can really say that for sure. So maybe upon one more watch, maybe when it comes out on Netflix, I'll watch it one more time and see how I truly feel about it and see if it'll make it on that list. But one thing I will say for sure is it's not ending up on my top 10 worst of the year. So, yeah, there you go. And then for my streaming service show/movie ranking system, movie in this case, at the top of the list, we have premium subscription, makes your subscription seem like a bargain. Tier below that, standard subscription, perfect for a streaming service. Tier below that, basic subscription, perfectly adequate, but not what you're paying for. Tier below that, basic subscription with ads, the type of content, or the type of mediocre content that streaming services shell out on the reg. Tier below that, we got free trial, worth watching. If it's free, highly recommend using as background noise. Tier below that, last tier is cancel your subscription. So bad you should cancel your subscription. Also consider asking for a refund. This film is definitely not that bad. Again, at times I was thinking, is this a premium subscription? But honestly, at the end of the day, I think I have to put this... Ooh, it kind of hurts to say this. Excuse me. I've been talking for a little too long. My throat hurts. But I have to put this in standard subscription just because there are times when this movie is just overly convoluted. There are a lot of things that I do love about this movie, but equally, there's a lot of things that I don't like. So, yeah, I think standard subscription for the streaming ranking and avoid the crowds for the film ranking if you're willing to watch in the theaters, that is. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this movie. It has a great cast and has really great writing and directing as well. There's just elements in here where I think, one, the film could have been cut down. You know, the runtime of the film should have been cut down. There are one too many elements in this movie. There's one too many things going on. There are characters that are a little too underdeveloped. But overall, there are a lot of great moments in this movie. There's a lot of fun to be had. So yeah, I'd recommend it for sure. But yeah, there's my review for 2022's Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. Did you watch it in the theaters? What did you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you in the middle? I definitely very, very much enjoyed it. But there are just things that kind of bring it down for me. Please do not spoil anything down in the comments below. Don't be that person. Don't be a dick. Because there's plenty of people that are going to have to wait until it comes out on Netflix. And speaking of which, are you going to watch it when it comes out on Netflix? Why or why not? I would love to know. Yeah, really just anything you want to comment in general. I'd love to hear from you. I always comment back, almost always, depending on what you say. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Leave a like on the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. And I will see you in the next one.